In this video, I'll be talking about the different categories of food and how healthy they are and how unhealthy they are. This is just a general showing of each category. I will not be going into full depth with all of them because that will take too long. If you want a separate video for each category with more details, let me know. I would also like to know I am not a medical professional or a food expert, so take everything I say with a grain of salt. With that being said, our 7 categories are meat, fruits, vegetables, dairy, grain, and sweets. Starting off is the meat category. In this category, we have things like beef, pork, lamb, mutton, goat. Pork falls under the red meat category, but I put in a separate section just to make things easier. For the beef options, I would say the healthiest is steak, lean cut steak. I would recommend lean cut steaks because they are the healthiest with few calories while having lots of essential nutrients. It might not be the cheapest, most healthiest option, but it's a very good source of protein. Another good option is ground beef. It's also a very good choice while having around the same stats of lean cut steaks while also costing a little bit less than usual. I'll try to keep in mind the cost while having it be the healthiest option, because being the healthiest doesn't always mean it's the cheapest. So we have the pork section. The pork section has items including pork chops, bacon, ham, hot dogs, spam. I would say pork is usually less healthy than the beef options, but if you have to go for pork, I would say go for a pork tenderloin. There's a good amount of protein, so you can't go wrong with it either. On the other hand, you'd want to avoid options like hot dogs, or just processed foods in general shouldn't be eaten, or at least eaten in moderation, because yes, it tastes good, and it's usually cheaper, but I would avoid them at all costs just because of how unhealthy they are. For example, I like eating spam with my breakfast, or eggs specifically. Definitely not a healthy option, but the key is moderation and balance. Still in the meat category, we have poultry. Poultry items include things like chicken, duck, turkey, etc. I didn't know where to put eggs because eggs are technically not a meat, so I put them under poultry because I would say they're technically classified as meat in my opinion, just because they grow into chicken and then turn into meat later, but they're like some sort of pseudo meat or pre-meat. I really wouldn't know where to classify it, so I just left it here. But honestly, if it comes to poultry, I would suggest eating any type of cut of chicken because you can't go wrong with chicken unless it's like fried chicken. Usually trade out health for taste if you're eating fried chicken, so that's up to you to decide whether you want to eat it or not. I would recommend legs, thighs, breasts. They're all very good options and you can't go wrong with them. But I believe there is a healthier option than chicken, and that option is eggs, of course. Eggs are one of the healthiest meat options, or if not just the healthiest option in general. Eggs are packed with nutrients and are an amazing source of protein. They are relatively cheap. The only one downside I could say is that cholesterol is kind of high, but that's one small downside for like 20 good things you get out of eggs. Not to mention, just like with chicken, you could make multiple different recipes out of eggs so it doesn't get boring just eating plain old eggs. Lastly, in the meat category, we have things like fish and other seafoods. These categories include fish, crabs, lobsters, mollusks, clams, oysters, scallops, mussels. Generally, fish is a very good healthy option of meat to choose from. I would argue that fish is around the same level as chicken in the healthy scale, if not healthier. The healthy options of seafood I would say is salmon. Salmon being packed with many nutrients and vitamins with a great protein count. I would say the only downside is that salmon is a little on the pricey end. Another seafood I would recommend is tuna. Fresh tuna is a little expensive as well, but if you need something fast, tuna in a can is very cheap, no preparation needed to cook it, and is a good amount of protein in a pinch, so keep that in mind if you just need a quick source of protein. And that is it for the meat category section. I had to split the meat categories into different sections just because of how many different types of meat there are, but the next sections won't be nearly as long. We have now entered into the fruit section. Honestly, you can eat any fruit because they're all good for you. Some fruits being better than other fruits, of course. But even if you're eating fruits, you're getting something out of it. The worst thing I could say about a fruit is watermelon and how it's lacking in nutrients. But even if it's lacking in nutrients, you're still gaining some nutrients from the watermelon. Plus, it is a good way to rehydrate yourself when you're feeling thirsty. But the fruit that I would say that is the healthiest is avocados because they have the most nutrients and minerals out of any other fruits. But honestly, you could eat most fruits and be fine. At that point, it's just up to preference, so eat whatever you want. Next we have is the vegetable section. This includes things like broccoli, carrots, onions, etc. Again, just like fruits, vegetables are also very healthy to eat. They will always add something beneficial when you're eating them. I forgot to mention in the fruit category that you usually want to eat these with something else. Just because they're low in calories, you wouldn't want to eat them by themselves. If you're only eating fruits and vegetables, you'll probably die. So it's a good idea to pair them with something else. But the vegetable that I would say is the healthiest would be broccoli. Yes, I know all of the answers I have been giving are just the cookie cutter answers of, yes, this is the healthy food option. Because it's just true, all of these options have a great amount of nutrients to gain from. And honestly, other vegetable options are just as good as broccoli. But of course, broccoli is very healthy by itself as well, but it also tastes good. The one downside I could say for broccoli is that it'll let you rip some ass. But other than that, broccoli is a very good choice. Next up, we have the dairy products. I'm sorry to all the lactose intolerance people. You might want to skip this section just because you can't eat milk or any other dairy products. Your dairy products include things like milk, cheese, butter, yogurt, etc. Milk is nice, having a good amount of nutrients, but nothing too fancy. I would say the healthiest option would be yogurt, but Greek yogurt specifically. It has a surprisingly amount of protein, good nutrients, probiotics for your gut health, etc. Greek yogurt also has the added benefits of being able to be used in many different recipes as well. Yogurt of the non-Greek variety is also generally pretty good to eat. Might not be the healthiest option in the world, but it's fine to eat in moderation, of course. For butter, you usually won't want to eat it by itself unless you're a freak of nature, but butter is used as a food enhancer. You usually want to cook other foods with the butter just to make the food taste a little extra better. But if you're gonna use butter, I would just suggest using olive oil, just because olive oil has the added benefits of the more nutrients and it's just outright just a bit healthier than butter. I wouldn't blame you if you use butter, just because butter does taste pretty good with other foods. We have now entered the grain section. Grain including stuff like corn, rice, wheat, oats, nuts. Nuts are technically a type of grain, but I have its own separate section. For corn, I'll say the healthiest option is corn. Good job, corn, for winning the corn section. For the healthiest rice option, I would say brown rice is the healthiest, but honestly, just eat any rice because rice is just good for you all around. For the wheat category, I would say the healthiest is probably brown bread, as brown bread is made from whole wheat, and whole wheat is having more fiber and more nutrients than the other bread. A bread you don't want to be eating a lot of is white bread. I don't know too much about white bread, but apparently it's not very good for you, so just kind of avoid it if you can. And for oats, I would just suggest eating the Quaker oats because it's a quick meal. It's very fast to make and it's just good for you, you know? We have now entered the nut section. Nuts include almonds, pecans, walnuts, Brazilian nuts, cashews, pistachios, etc. Peanuts aren't technically nuts, but that's nerd stuff, so I won't talk about it. Generally, any nuts are just good to eat unless you're allergic. And for the healthiest nuts, technically walnuts are the healthiest because of their omega acid content and all the nutrients and vitamins they have. But I honestly haven't been talking about nutrients on a more detailed level because that would make the video take forever to make. Just know that walnuts are good for you. Just watch out if you're eating too much salt. I don't really personally eat walnuts myself, even though they're good for you. They're not really my favorite nuts. My favorite nut is almonds because they taste good and they're still calorie dense and nutrient dense as well. Even though they might not be as good as walnuts nutritionally wise, they're a great alternative and a great snack to have. If you ever want something easy though, I would suggest peanut butter as it still has a good amount of protein while being able to use in multiple recipes as well. I don't actually cook, so take everything I say with a grain of salt. Last but not least, we have sweets, which include things like candy, soda, chocolate, Red 40, chips, cereal, etc. I put cereal down here because it's pretty much eating dessert for breakfast in most cases. I also put chips down here because technically they're not sweets, but I didn't know where to put them or where to categorize them, so I left them down here. Honestly, you probably shouldn't be eating these things, but having them once in a while doesn't hurt. Having a balance between health and happiness is a great way to keep you mentally healthy. It isn't always about being the healthiest you can be, because that might cause you to be unhappy in the long run. If all you're doing is obsessing and focusing on your flesh vessel's health and not your mental health, then you just won't be happy. But the same can be said about overeating sweets. Yes, they taste good and you'll be happy in the short term, but you'll be doing your body a disservice. I've been talking about the healthiest foods, but at the same time, you want to be exercising to gain even more from the things you are eating. But if you want to eat something sweet from time to time, I don't blame you. I would recommend eating whatever makes you happy or whatever makes you feel the happiest. But for my favorite chips, my favorite is Chippy Goat.